All right. Let's get fired up here.
Maximum freedom. Read.
Stay on target.
Maximum freedom.
Stay on target.
Maximum freedom. Read Rothbard.
Well, hello and welcome to the Actual Anarchy podcast. We're talking about movies from a Rothbardian and Anarcho-Capitalist perspective. Tonight, we might be a little bit rusty because we got a couple of shows done early due to the holidays. So happy Thanksgiving, everyone. We hope you had a good time with your friends and family. And we are kicking off that dust with our friend Shaheen from Australia to talk about The Killing Joke and hopefully sneaking in some conversation about Joker, because Shaheen was originally going to be our guest for Joker. Then he fell ill, and we had Scott M. admirably fill in for you, Shaheen. And it was a really good discussion, but we do want to kind of blend in with this movie, your take on that movie, because you are our Batman DC Universe guy. So thank you for being a friend and coming back to join us for this episode on Batman, The Killing Joke, the animated feature. And this is episode 158 of the Actual Anarchy podcast. You can find that show notes more at actualanarchy.com/158. But before we get into the last night's portion of the show and introduce you proper, I'm going to say hello to Robert, who is breaking all sorts of sales records day by day with his new business venture. He's sporting the black and gold on his signage. We talked about the signage in one of the pre-shows a couple of weeks ago, where apparently doing it yourself ends up becoming more expensive and less durable. Maybe the quality is a little bit less precise, a little bit suspect. That's why sometimes you got to take advantage of the division of labor and specialization and get somebody who really knows what they're doing. But it's a learning experience, right, Robert? And you're still using those signs. They're working pretty well for you. And apparently, I mean, you're bringing in all of these sales records. So congratulations. What do you want to talk about it for just a moment here before we get in last night's portion of the show?
Yeah, do you want to give me like an award or something for how good of a job I'm doing and how awesome my signs were?
Well, I mean, I did send you a GIF on the old Facebook page with Buddy the Elf saying you did it, like world's best cup of coffee, that scene. Is that what you're alluding to, or am I like being obtuse and totally missing out on what you're talking about?
No, that satisfies me. I appreciate that. No, we're bringing a unique thing to this area, and I think the people are really responding. They really appreciate the service that we're providing for people, and yeah, as a result, we're blowing up. We need to hire a bunch of people to satisfy the demand, and yeah, things are looking very positively for us. So yeah, thank you for noticing that. I noticed you came along and did some sort of mass liking. I don't know if you had like a spam bot or something, but all of a sudden I get this like 56 notifications on my phone, and it's all from Daniel because he's liked every single last little thing we ever did. So thank you for that, sir.
Well, you're welcome. And that was a manual labor of love. I did each of those likes with my physical finger touching a magic computer that holds all the knowledge in the world in the palm of my hand. Thank you, capitalism. But speaking of that, totally unrelated to that, let's move on to the last night's portion of the show, because we only have our guest, Shaheen, for a very brief period of time here. So we want to make the most of it on the last nighters portion of the show.
Sounds great, buddy.
Hey everyone, it's Daniel Elwood and Robert Johnson, the Last Nighters, and Last Nighters can be found on Launchpad Media, where they're always launching new ideas in your direction. Check it out at thelaunchpadmedia.com. This is episode 101 of the show. We're finally at triple digits for the Last Nighters. And tonight we're going to be doing The Killing Joke. It's a Batman film. And of course, we can't be talking Batman without our man from Down Under who loves to talk Batman, DC Universe, and release the Snyder Cut. It's Shaheen from Adelaide. How you doing, Shaheen? Thank you for joining us for this episode. Really interested in your take on this one, and also Joker, which was a show that you were to be on back in October. That would have been episode 94 of the show. We did it anyway, despite your illness, with our friend Scott, and he filled in pretty well. But we want your take on that one as well. So we're going to do a little bit of a twofer, try to cram it in this very limited amount of time that we have with you tonight. Yeah, welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thanks. I'm happy to be on again.
Yeah, so if people don't know of you already, just maybe a little brief, like who you are, what you do, that kind of a thing, and then we'll get into this with the Google description and have our conversation.
All right, all good. So I'm an ANCAP student. I do engineering, and I live all the way down in Adelaide, Australia. And I'm a big Batman and DC Comics fan. Yeah, release the Snyder Cut. That's all relevant information.
Yeah, and I actually sent you a story I saw today. Snyder apparently teased that he actually had the Snyder Cut, that it exists, and so there's I guess building momentum to try to get Warner to release the however many millions of dollars it would take to take the CGI and actually make it fully completed. But people are excited about it.
More or less done.
Yeah, and now real briefly, what is the point of the Snyder Cut? Why are people clamoring for it? Because when you watch Justice League, and you were on our episode of that, gosh, when was it? It was quite a while ago, and there were actually two cuts of it. It was episode 81 of the show here, and I watched the theatrical, and it made no sense. Then I watched the Ultimate Edition or whatever it is, and it made a little bit more sense. But there's still a lot of gaps.
That was Batman v Superman. That has two cuts. Justice League just had the one cut, which was just the theatrical. And the reason we want the Snyder Cut is because it's a whole different movie. It's not just a few extra scenes. It's a whole different story, different tones, more characters, bigger storylines, bigger B plots, more development. It's just a completely different take. Pretty much a different movie. 3.5 hours long as well, not just 2 hours.
Okay, right, yeah. See, this is why we have you here, to correct me, because we did have you on for Batman v Superman, and that was episode 78, and then we had you on for Justice League, which was 81. So yes, it's all coming back to me now. So anyway, why don't we kick this thing off again? Episode 101 of the show. Show notes are more at lastnighters.com/101. And also just wanted to mention that we are now going to be implementing a streaming. Our Patreon supporters at lastnighter.com/Patreon have had access to live streaming for quite a while, and we're considering toying with the idea of breaking that out to the general populace using a service called StreamYard, which we will have an affiliate link for that at lastnighter.com/theyard. If you want to check that out, it's a really cool service. We're still learning the ins and outs of it, but it's got some really powerful and intuitive, easy to use features that are going to come in handy going forward. But let's go ahead with the Google description. It's very brief. Batman: The Killing Joke came out in 2016, drama/crime film, 1 hour, 26 minutes, 6.4 on IMDb, 40% Rotten Tomatoes, and 84% of Google users liked it. Batman, voiced by Kevin Conroy, must save Commissioner Gordon, played by Ray Wise, from the Joker's twisted quest to drive him insane. This is the final turn of Mark Hamill playing the Joker. He had said that it was really hard on his voice to be doing the Joker voice, and the only reason he would come back would be to do the Killing Joke. So then they did the Killing Joke, and as we'll discuss, it kind of turned out a little bit less than the expectations, I think, were. Came out July 25th, 2016. Director Sam Liu, not sure if I'm saying that right. box office of $4.4 million and a budget of $3.5 million. We'll go to Robert for your take on the opening here, and then we'll go to our guest.
Well, there's not a whole lot there to talk about other than just the production of it, I suppose. Was there even really a description of the actual plot?
No, I mean, really the Killing Joke graphic novel is really about the Joker trying to get Gordon to turn insane, like take a sane man and turn him insane, to show, I guess, that like anyone can have one bad day and that's all it takes. Like the one little push that Heath Ledger's Joker kind of talked about in Dark Knight.
Yeah, it's very much the Dark Knight. Well, I mean, Killing Joke was first, but I don't know why, but it watching it again, I felt like I had seen it before, but I hadn't seen the first half of it before. So maybe Shaheen could tell me, has this been done before? And if so, in what format? Was it an animated series TV show or something? Because I definitely had seen it before. I remember Gordon.
This whole thing is based on a graphic novel called, by the same name, The Killing Joke. I think by Alan Moore. Don't quote me.
That's right.
Yeah, pretty much the same story happens, except the whole beginning, the first half an hour. Like it starts from the part where Batman goes to Arkham Asylum to talk to the Joker, and the whole sex with Batgirl and everything. That was new and made for this feature.
Right, but was this in itself a remake, or is this something that I had actually just seen before?
It might have just been something you've seen before. I think this is the first time they made The Killing Joke like as an animated movie.
Okay, well, I found myself very, very familiar with what was happening. Like, I don't remember if I had read the comic multiple times, but after the first half, or when it switches over to be The Killing Joke, I was just like, oh yeah, well, I've seen this before. This is The Killing Joke. But the first half was all new to me. And that's what kind of threw me off. Like, as a whole, this movie doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. It seems like it's two different movies or two short stories crammed together. The one didn't have anything to do with the other. I mean, maybe someone can enlighten me as to what the first half had to do with the second half, but
I can take that a little bit, Robert. In reading up on this, they wanted to establish Gordon's daughter a little bit more so that the threat to her is more meaningful. Like, so we get to know her a little bit. And the directors or the producers of this felt that The Killing Joke itself, the story itself, wasn't quite long enough, didn't quite have enough meat to be a full feature. So they tacked on the front end to make Gordon's daughter become more important to the story. But it does feel very shoehorned in, very ham-fisted way of going about it. And I think I sent you this meme a while ago, Shaheen, where it was like Netflix is trying to put any, unnecessarily gay characters into shows for whatever reason. I kind of felt that way with her friend in the library. It's like, okay, I mean, it's fine.
I didn't mind it. I mean, I'm happy with it, but yeah, it does feel shoehorned in representation.
Yeah. Now, in watching this, I was like, okay, I can appreciate giving a little bit of background on her as a character and her being Batgirl. That's kind of interesting. But the whole hooking up with Batman, that was weird because it seems that he was in more of
age different.
Yeah, like a surrogate father mentoring relationship with her, or maybe a professor student.
A yoga teacher.
Yeah. Exactly.
Now, the thing is, with Batman and Batgirl having a relationship, have you seen the old animated TV shows like Batman Beyond and all that? Have you heard of those?
I have. I've watched the old animated series, that whole run.
Yeah.
I haven't seen everything on Batman Beyond, but the first one I have.
In the old animated series, and like in that universe, it was established that Batman and Batgirl did date at some point. I think this just kind of plays on that and kind of creates a new story inspired by that.
Yeah, okay. I okay, well, narratively, okay, I understand the point of increasing the audience's appreciation for
Attachment.
Barbara and her character, and then caring about her when she gets shot. But the movie goes from being about this mobster Paris France guy to then all of a sudden being about the Joker. And it just feels like, how does it not feel like two different stories to you?
It is two different stories, I reckon. And yeah, like thing is, like with comic books, like I'm a bit of a geek, so with comics, sometimes like a story's finished, and then immediately you jump into a new story. So this really felt like a comic book come to life or come to animation, more so than an actual movie. Like it didn't have one overarching plot, but it had two shorter stories, which kind of have some connection. Then they come together. That's how I see it.
If they had played that up, I would have been more on board, I think.
Yeah, if Paris France had maybe been like a henchman of Joker or something, or somehow related, I feel like they could have built a sturdier bridge to connect the two stories.
It's definitely true.
And then
I'm not going to be defending that. Don't worry.
yeah, and then the the whole point of Joker, I guess, going after Gordon, just in the Killing Joke proper, it seemed like there was more there to work with that they just didn't use. Like, yeah, they've got Gordon on the roller coaster and they're playing the imagery, trying to drive him crazy, but it didn't seem to be effective. And I guess I just didn't really feel the danger he was in, or the risk, or the costs that he was facing, or the struggle he had to maintain his sanity. Like I felt like it just kind of, things happened to him, and then Batman shows up and Joker's like, "Hey, I turned your buddy crazy." And like, no, you didn't.
No, you didn't.
Okay, well, all right, there's your movie.
Yeah. I think this is a case of where the comic does it better. Is I have read the comic a while back. I haven't read it recently. But yeah, I think from what I remember, the comic does feel a lot more whole. Like this kind of felt like it happened way too quick. Like 1 second he's in the car seeing pictures of Barbara, and then immediately he's, oh, I want it done by the book. Whereas in the comic, it kind of feels like he's going through a lot more, and then he kind of has to like pull himself up and be like, no, I'm not going crazy. Like, certainly it felt more dramatic in the comic than it did here.
Yeah, because I didn't feel any tension with it, because the reveal was so quick, and there was no question. Like, really, there wasn't even time to question. Like, oh, did it work?
No, I just have to agree with you guys. It was way too quick. There was no tension. There was never even a moment where Gordon acted a little bit crazy. It was just like he was being tortured, and then Joker thinks that torturing somebody can turn them crazy.
I mean, I agree.
When has Joker ever been that character? I don't know. I mean, he does it in Dark Knight, but it's handled so much better in that.
Yeah, I think it's just a difference of live action versus animation. More effort and better storytelling is just for the movies compared to animation.
Yeah. Now we do get a bit more of Joker's origin, though, in this one, which is kind of interesting, and they referenced this in Joker a little bit
Mm.
with him being a stand-up comedian, a failed stand-up comedian.
And here's the thing, Joker, like in the comics, like in the DC canon, like no, not the movie Joker, but in general in the DC universe, he doesn't actually have a confirmed past. Like we have no idea how he became Joker or why. And this is one of the many possible reasons. And he even says in the movie that if he is to have a history, he prefers it to be multiple choice. So this is one way that he might remember it, or might be how it actually happened. But it's not confirmation.
Right, because he's an unreliable narrator in the story of
Exactly,
Joker across all platforms, right? And so, like even in Ledger's performance, he gives different reasons for why he has the scars.
The only incarnations of Joker where we have a definite history is in the old 1989 movie and in the Joker movie this year. They're like different versions. They're not like straight out of the comics versions. Whereas Heath Ledger's and Jared Leto's are the most comic accurate ones.
Because they're like the vats of acid kind of a story, or
and we have no idea what happened to him before that, or
right.
who he even was before that.
I mean, I kind of think that it's kind of cool that, well, it just kind of works out in their favor, I guess. They can be sloppy because of the nature of the character. They can say, oh, well, he's crazy, he's schizophrenic, so you can have different origins and they could all be plausible. And he could think all of them are true at the same time or switch back and forth. And, you know, that's just the nature of who Joker is as a character.
And it's far more interesting that way. I mean, Wolverine in Marvel Comics for the longest time didn't have an origin story. And I think some fans wanted one, but a lot of other fans didn't want one for that exact reason. Like they didn't want some canon answer to
ruins the mystery.
Say what the origin was, because it makes the character less interesting. I like the idea that we don't really know what his origin story is. It could be this, it could be that. You leave it up to the character, the audience's imagination to what could have driven this guy to do such things and to be this person now.
Right.
It's far more interesting.
I think that was kind of the point that Todd Phillips had made in some of his comments about when he was making Joker, is that it doesn't necessarily need to become canon, and it can be a standalone film because you have this myriad of different possible origins. So he's just adding another angle to it, or another, possibility to the pot of possibilities.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I like the idea that he's an unreliable narrator in all of them, especially in the latest Joker movie. We don't know exactly what's real and what's not real, and that's part of the fun.
Yeah, that's one I need to watch again, because I saw it in the theater and then we did the episode on it, and I viewed it one way, and then I've since seen other people's interpretations, and now I'm like interested to watch it again. And I think I mentioned during our episode that I viewed it a little bit in the way of like The Shining, where the music was a bit of a character, but also there's like little things that you don't notice the first time or two through that you can then notice the next time you watch it, that makes it reveal a little bit more of the film to you, and it can have slightly different meanings. So I'm actually interested in watching that again when it comes out on the home viewing platforms.
It should be in early January, I reckon. So a month away.
So Shaheen, what did you think of the Joker, or just Joker?
Oh, I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. The blandest answer ever, but yeah.
Like a near masterpiece.
Oh, well, depending on which angle you come from, yeah, I reckon as like a drama movie, yeah, it would be a masterpiece. But it's just my personal criteria for a movie. Like, I like it being very long and also a lot of action. So like a Zack Snyder film, pretty much. But yeah, this was for a non-Zack Snyder movie, it was a masterpiece. Yeah, I'd say that.
I thought that self-contained, it stands on its own merits. Like it could have been a story not about Joker, and it still would have been good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we already have that. It's called Taxi Driver.
Yeah. and the King of Comedy, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, our buddy Mike C, who we're going to be having on for a one of the Christmas movies coming up here. He said that Joker is like the third in the trilogy, the third installment of Taxi Driver, The King of Comedy, and Joker, all starring De Niro, who's now like a crybaby leftist, but still he had some great movies.
What are you talking about, Daniel? De Niro is a brave man. I think he said "fuck Trump" on TV. Just very brave,
So brave,
So brave.
stunning.
stunning and brave.
Poor bastard. He can act though, or at least he could. I don't know about
You either
so
die
much.
a hero or you live long enough to become the villain.
Yep. Exactly. So any more on your take of Joker, Shaheen? Because we had, envisioned you being on for an entire episode, so I imagine you got some powder that's still dry there.
Joker. It's been kind of a while since I saw it. Saw it on opening night. All right, what's my take? So, what I wish would have been the case for Joker is if it was in the main DC extended universe, and Joaquin dies at the end. It's kind of how what I wanted to happen. So he's in the main DC universe. The whole thing happens, the whole near revolution thing. Thomas Wayne running for mayor. And then he dies at the end and inspires this group of Jokers, this Joker gang. And then one of those Jokers, inspired by Joaquin's Joker, by Arthur Fleck, goes and kills Thomas Wayne and Martha Wayne. And that's the beginning of Batman v Superman. Like that takes place like a week after Joker does. And then you have this Joker gang for like 20 years. And there's this one guy, this one Joker, who's outdoing them all, and he kills all the other Jokers, so he's the only one standing, and he becomes a Jared Leto Joker. That's kind of what I really wished it would have happened.
Okay, yeah. And then you could even tie in the Ledger one, because in the opening scene, the bank heist, they're all dressed in masks, and then he eliminates, spoilers everyone for a movie that's like 12 years old now, all the other henchmen.
Yeah, it would be a good Easter egg to that as well.
Yeah. Now, but in Joker, they actually showed the clutching of the pearls and the the Wayne murder again. It was just some random guy. It wasn't even like a Joker mask guy, was it? If I recall.
Oh yeah, it was. Pretty sure it was.
Okay, we're all fuzzy on this one a little bit.
Yeah, it's a bit late.
Well, with back to the Killing Joke a little bit. When Commissioner Gordon tells Batman, "Hey, you got to see this," and they bring him to this storage room, and he's got the other detective, the fat one, who's had a
Bullock,
yeah, donut fetish, that guy. They show all these guys sitting in chairs with deranged, hysterical laughs, like frozen on their faces as they're dead. And I thought that was going to be an opportunity to reveal or have this mystery of what could have killed them in this state. And is this some new, like, dangerous thing that Joker has concocted that can be like an imminent risk or a threat to everyone in Gotham? Because he does do it to the guy who he buys or leases the carnival from, but it's not as if that's at risk of like harming everyone. It's like just used in very isolated incidents. And I thought that it would have been nice if like, say, in Joker, the movie, he gets on TV and kills Murray. Well, if he had the capacity to have this weapon, sort of like, which one was it that had Scarecrow with the gas they were going to release in the sewers? Was that Dark Knight?
That's Batman. No, that's Batman Begins. Actually, this is very similar to the plot, like him going on TV and then trying to use this poison Joker gas on all of Gotham. I think that's very similar to the plot of Batman '89. Have you seen that with Michael Keaton?
It's been I saw it like in '89.
Yeah, it's the Jack Nicholson one.
Yeah, there's also an animated series episode where Joker releases like this laughing gas in the city, and he goes around robbing the place, but everybody's just laughing until they die and then turn into crazy people. Well, they die with a smile on their mouth. So I see what you're saying though, Daniel, with the kind of setup and then not payoff. I think it's all part of this whole smashing together two stories. There isn't a coherent narrative that kind of runs through the whole thing.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like why show us those people who have been affected by this thing if that thing is not going to be a threat later that needs to be defeated or diffused or prevented?
I guess in the comics, it made more sense because that's just Joker's way of killing everyone in the comics. When you walk somewhere and you see they've been affected by a chemical, like the Joker gas, that's kind of how he usually like goes about killing people. Like that's his calling card. So it would have, in the comics, it kind of makes more sense because you just see, oh, okay, so now we know Joker's on the loose and he's back to killing. Whereas here, it kind of, since it's very standalone, kind of feels like it's a setup, where it's actually not meant to be one.
Right. Okay.
That's my take.
Now remind me, because it's been like a month or two since I've watched this, but they show the origin of Joker, but then when Batman confronts him, they've been arch enemies for a while. So there is a gap of time, right? It's not like this is our first interaction between Batman and Joker.
Nope. Yeah.
Okay. And we did have we had you on for Dark Knight Returns a couple of months back. I'll put that on our show notes page at lastnighter.com/101 as well. And that's where Joker finally gets killed or dies. The final confrontation with Batman. And that might be what you were thinking of, Robert, because that is also in a funhouse type situation. They're on that like love canal.
No? I understand what you're talking about, and that's also very similar. But no, there's also I've seen the whole fun carnival with
the midget and the fat lady and
Gordon being trussed up and tried to be crazy and that sort of thing.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe I've seen this movie before. Maybe I saw it in 2016, and I don't think I saw it.
You know what you might have had
when I would have gotten to see it.
You might have had a situation where it was on at a place you were at, and you caught it partway through. Or you had some benevolent overseer who was like, hey, Robert, I want to show you this movie, but I'm going to spare you the lame part and just show you the killing joke.
That's what's happening.
Someone is looking out for you. You had a little angel on your shoulder.
Thank you, sir, or madam, or non-binary, whatever.
Yeah, don't assume the gender, seriously. Fucking bigot.
Hate speech.
I know.
Now, speaking of hate speech, Robert, I'm sure you got a rant in you about circus acts and freaks who are utilized in their talents. Joker was providing them a place to showcase their abilities and earn money. Why don't you take it from there? And then I have a follow-up question once you rant for a moment on that.
Well, I think this rant is far more appropriate for The Greatest Showman, which is a movie we should have done by now, but we haven't, where P.T. Barnum recently, I think, maybe like in the past 2 years, he's really been shit on as like an exploiter of people, as just like, he wasn't friends with Tom Thumb, he wasn't friends with Thumbelina or whoever, all these little, circus performer people. He was a horrible capitalist exploiter who, turned these freaks and made them into laughing stocks and that sort of thing. When in reality, as the movie suggests, he was the only one, giving him a job. They were entrepreneurs who could meet a unique market demand using their own unique physical characteristics, their own unique talents that nobody else could provide. They were actually making quite the living And I bet you if you had asked them at the time, hey, do you feel like you're being exploited? I'm sure they would have said, are you kidding? Do you know what my life was like before this? It's really easy to have this great, beautiful, wonderful life, that freedom has really tried to provide for you. And then to look back at somebody else's life and feel, protect them from whatever imagined oppression is affecting them. It's a really privileged argument, and it seems like it's happening more and more these days, that we're looking back through this woke lens and being offended for people that were never offended to begin with.
And are long since dead.
And are long since dead. And looking back on good people, and then now deciding that they were terrible people because, my new found ideology tells me so. And in this movie, Joker is using these unique people to assault people. They're criminal gangster type people, but they have unique talents, I guess.
But they were in his employ as part of the deal for taking over the establishment. Like they were already there, right?
I'd be surprised if that was true. I thought that they were just his criminal gang that rolled with him.
Oh, they just happened to be like circus freaks, and then he bought a circus or a carnival.
I mean, it's not clear, but from time to time in the animated series and other times, he has operated out of various fun houses and carnivals and defunct places. Harley runs around with these two hyenas, and he oftentimes has various clowns and other weirdos. Clowns, they're weirdos. Other weirdos in his gang. So I think it's just his natural habitat, but I maybe they were there already, and then he's just the new boss, and he's telling them go ahead and beat up people, and they're like, yeah, we like beating up people.
Well, you're the boss. You got to do what the boss.
Either way,
people up, Daniel. It's capitalism. It's like he's a king, and we're the serfs, and we got to do what he says.
Oh, I love that argument. Get that one a lot. Well,
the way I see it, either way, even if they were his gang or they came with the place, the fact that they're listening to him, this violent criminal, that kind of, and they're doing violent acts against like Commissioner Gordon and Batman and all, that kind of violates them, doesn't it? That's kind of all you need to say they're violating the NAP.
Well, yeah, I mean, they have self-ownership. They're making that decision to do that. Whether they were instructed or advised or ordered to do it or paid to do it, they still have self-ownership and can decide, they're responsible for their actions for what they're doing. Unless Joker's got a gun to their head, which he very well may have. I mean, he's a crazy psychopath guy who might have dead man switches on them or something, right? Like, if you don't do what I say, then this and this and this will happen to you no matter what happens to me.
For sure. And I don't know if they specifically show it in any Joker movies, but it's easily conceivable that he could have manipulated various people and gotten dirt on various people and threatening all of these good people that are just trying to survive or whatever. But obviously we don't get that. The movie isn't about that.
Right.
We don't have enough time to delve into all that.
Well, so my follow-up question with the circus freaks, I can say that, right? That's not hate speech?
Daniel, that is hate speech calling them that.
Well, I guess...
Even though they self-identify as, I think, geeks. Geeks are the ones that do body stuff, right? They're the ones that poke needles through their tongues and stuff.
In this movie?
No, just in general. They call themselves geeks.
I don't know, man.
They like eat glass.
And they goths.
I don't know. Anyway, what's your point? What's your question, Daniel?
Okay, boomers. My point is how anticlimactic, how no tension was involved in Batman defeating all of these myriad freaks. It was just like,
well, that's almost always the case.
2 or 3 in a row. It's like bing, bang, boom, bada bing, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Batman defeats them all. No risk to him at all whatsoever. You never feel like he's even has a chance of losing. And so
that's why I thought this was more like an episode of the animated series. I thought it probably worked better as a slightly more mature adult kind of episode. Because you're right. It's just Batman comes in, beats everybody up. Maybe he does it in a slightly interesting way, maybe not. But that's always the case with Batman when it comes to like just a fist fight.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like you don't want Batman to be at risk every single fight he gets in, because he is meant to be like super big, tough guy with like a master of 100 different martial arts. So he should be able to kick some ass. It's just the big battles that are meant to get him and put him at risk.
Plus Batman's a Chad. These are all a bunch of beta males trying to take him on. Are you kidding me? Get out of here.
These are the virgins. Yeah. Virgin sex is free. Just Chad man.
Bunch of incels. Get him out.
Right, but then back to Joker's plot. I mean, I didn't feel like there was anything at stake, really. Like, it was over so quickly. Gordon was totally unaffected. Apparently, Joker's plan was to bring in Batman, have him defeat his people because he knew it was going to happen, and then make a show of Gordon having gone crazy. And that is to do what? To show up Batman, to prove to him that, to prove to Batman that Joker or anyone could go crazy. I mean, I guess I don't understand. Like, even if Joker had been successful, what's the fucking point?
Well, and there's never even set up. Like, the movie starts, like the actual killing joke starts, and Barbara asks him when he's like shooting her and he starts taking her clothes off, and she's like, "Why are you doing this?" And he says, "To prove a point." At that point, the audience has no idea what point he's talking about because we haven't been told. There was at no point before it a scene where Batman and Joker are talking, and Joker's like, "You know what? I bet you I can turn a sane person crazy. It just takes a little push or whatever." And Batman's like, no, you can't. You totally can't. There's no scene like that. I didn't know what he was talking about. Did you know what he was talking about, Daniel?
I did not know what he's talking about. And I wasn't sure, but it was implied that he raped her, right? After he paralyzed her?
Yeah, and to what end?
Just to use that as like leverage in torturing Gordon?
I guess.
Yeah, make him crazy.
But then it didn't work at all. So again, we're kind of left with, all right, well, so Batman defeated all the henchmen. Joker's plot failed completely. Gordon did not go crazy, still didn't want even vengeance. He still wanted to go by the book, right? That was the whole thing. Like, I guess Joker was like, I can make him go crazy or so mad that he'll seek vengeance against me and go outside of the bounds of the law. I laugh a little bit about that because, well,
yeah, we know who we are.
Yeah, if you've listened to this show for a long enough time, you know what I'm talking about. But
yeah, what do you mean? We totally respect the law, don't we?
Certain laws, yes, natural law, but I guess even though Joker's plot completely failed, I still understand like what makes this a movie, what makes this a story worth telling. I mean, Shaheen, you're telling me the graphic novel was far more foreboding, like there was more like nuance to it and more, hey, Gordon.
It feels like more of a thing. Is comics in general just feel there's a different feeling in comics and movies, like the whole setup, the flow, how quickly things happen, and the climax. It's all a bit different. I don't know how to explain it, but it's different. And this movie makes more sense in comic form, and it's a lot of people's favorite comic book as well. But yeah, I get why it doesn't feel the best as a movie.
All right, well, I'll rephrase my question. What's the hook? What's the thing in the graphic novel version that people point to and say, that's what made it good?
I think
I don't know if there is one.
It-
I
it's the same as the movie. It's
answer,
just
but
it's the
I
same
won't.
thing as
There's a little
I think
crosstalk.
it's the same as Joker wanting to make Gordon crazy and make him abandon his principles, because that's what Joker does. He just attacks you and kind of tries to destroy you from the inside. Kind of what he was trying to do to Batman in The Dark Knight as well, to make him break his one rule. So it's what he's trying to do to Gordon this time, and at the end, Gordon doesn't break. It's just the delivery is a lot better in the graphic novel. And it's pretty short too, I reckon. So it's a quick read. If you want to give it a look and see what you think, I do recommend it. Probably find it online for free.
And this is one of those situations where I probably should have done that before doing this episode. But Robert, we'll go to you. I know you had something to say.
Well, allow me, if you will, just a short little piece on why comic books can be better than movies. It's just like
I'm already on board.
can be better than movies. A lot of it, especially the space in between panels, exists solely in the reader's mind. So the amount of time that passes, what's happening,
Pacing.
what happens to your characters, what doesn't happen to your characters, what they're thinking, what they're doing, all that stuff happens in your brain in between panels. And that can definitely affect the pacing, the flow, the feel. I mean, you could read a page and then sit for an hour and think about what just happened. But in a movie, the pace is just zipping right along. You don't have time to sit there and think about anything. So in the same way that, yeah, novels can be better than movies, comic books can also definitely be better than movies in that sense. And that's why I mean, I can't specifically speak to the Killing Joke graphic novel versus this movie because I haven't read the Killing Joke graphic novel in a long time. But it just in general, they don't have, I mean, they also have unlimited budgets, you know, in the sense that they can just draw whatever they want. But yeah, it's just the nature of the medium that allows for a lot of nuance to happen. And it's different for every person. Anyway, that's it.
All right, I think that's a good take. Now, I guess we can sort of wind this down a little bit, but let's before we get into that, on our Joker episode with Scott, that Shaheen, we had intended to have you on, we actually asked him what was his ranking of Jokers, like by who played them, and this being Mark Hamill's final performance of the animated version of the Joker. And we included Mark Hamill in our original take on this back when we did that episode. But do you have a ranking, including, you know, Cesar Romero and Nicholson
That's
and
a tough one.
Ledger, all that? Do you have a Marshall utility scale that you can share with us? You start at the bottom, like who was the worst? That might be an easy one. And work your way up.
Honestly, all right, I'm gonna be controversial again. Say I don't think Jared Leto's the worst one.
That is controversial.
He did great for what he was given. Because keep in mind, the Suicide Squad movie was butchered by the studio as well. This Warner Brothers studio, they just fuck everyone over. So I reckon the original, and like I reckon he's the most comic accurate Joker we've got, especially compared to like the New 52 Joker, which is the series I'm reading right now. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have a ranking. Because I don't think any of them are bad to be placed as like at the bottom. Oof. This is tough.
Well,
I have to think about this for a second.
You could pretend that we're just doing pickup and it's a room full of 7s and above. So no one's terrible, but you got to do a preference scale here. And it's dynamic and it's spontaneous. It's on the spot.
Right. I can dig that. Okay. So the one I probably care the least for is Cesar Romero. It's a classic, sure, but it's like, really? And then probably Jack Nicholson. I mean, sure, I love him, and I think Batman '89 is a fantastic movie. But I don't know. I kind of the others I think do it better. Okay, so how many's left? There's
You got Hamill, you got Joaquin, you got
You mean Conroy? Oh, we were talking about Joker. Sorry. Yeah, Hamill.
Conroy's Batman. Yeah, Hamill, Phoenix, Leto, and Ledger. I'm just gonna put Ledger as number one. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. Probably Joaquin is number two. Then honestly, I'd say it's a tie between Hamill and Leto.
really.
Yeah, in terms of how much I like him. But if I had to pick one, I'd go with Hamill, only because there's just so much more content with Hamill compared to Leto. Although I think if they were given enough, the same level of content, like a proper movie with Joker in it, proper Batman v Joker movie, then it might have been Leto on top. I actually really like Leto's Joker.
Wow. Okay. All right, Robert, your rebuttal or your critique or your incredulous response.
No, I just have a scoff.
Right. I get it.
No, I mean,
But like,
for me, Ledger and Phoenix are right up there at the top. Like they're bros,
1 and 2.
bro fisting at the top, hugging it out. And then you've got Hamill, and then you've got Nicholson, and then you got Romero, and then you got Leto. I mean, I think that's just the natural list handed down to Moses on the mountain. That's why it's in the Bible.
Fair enough.
I don't understand the controversy.
Yeah,
Well, you gotta remember that Shaheen is on the other side of the world, so the toilet swirls
It's upside down.
the other direction.
Oh, yeah. No, you got to turn it, the stone tablet. You're reading it upside down, Shaheen.
well, I did put Ledger and Phoenix as 1 and 2. So if I turn it upside down, then they'd be the worst ones. I actually, for the most part, do agree. It's just with Leto, if you watch Suicide Squad again, the 7 minutes that he's in, the 7 minutes the Joker has screen time, they're the highlights of the film. They're the best scenes of the movie, hands down. And like, in that, I don't know if you remember. Have you guys seen it? You guys seen Suicide Squad, the extended cut?
I blanked out for about an hour and a half, and I think it was on.
Was that was the theatrical cut though, right, Robert?
There was a bunch of muddy things going on, and every once in a while there'd be some color, and then I think that was Suicide Squad. Yeah.
There's another one I thought
Sounds about right.
the trailer was really good for.
The trailer was fabulous. It was timed to the music. It was great.
Yeah, it got you hyped up to see it, and then it was a big goose egg of disappointment in the watch.
The director for that, the director for Suicide Squad has been he said that like the whole movie was a bit different, and they shot enough for a different movie as well. So after we get the Snyder cut, we're going to go for the Ayer cut of Suicide Squad.
I mean, I'm sure it's probably better. There's a lot of problems with Suicide Squad that I don't know if a director's cut could fix. I mean, it's another giant energy beam going into the sky. It's a bunch of faceless enemies, all totally being completely destroyable by the slightest whim of any of our heroes.
I never said it'll be a masterpiece. It's just it'll be better and worth watching. Did you know that originally the main bad guy for Suicide Squad was meant to be Steppenwolf?
I did not know that.
And the faceless things, they were meant to be the parademons. So it was actually meant to set up Justice League. That was going to be his initial attempt at an invasion. And the Enchantress, she was meant to be controlled by one of those mother boxes, not just some random old South American thing.
Well, that would have made a lot more sense and tied it into the universe better.
Oh, so it wasn't the Crystal Skull from Indiana Jones?
No, it wasn't. No. Fortunately.
Yeah, so we actually need you, Shaheen, for when we're actually watching these movies to give us the director's commentary. I was like, all right, this was meant to be this other thing that would have been awesome, and set up this other thing and had some continuity and connected it all together. And but unfortunately,
all I can say is fuck IP and fuck Warner Brothers. That's seriously all I can say at this point.
Yeah, so how long is Warner Brothers going to be holding like the DC universe hostage? Is this done now, or now that they?
I think that
What?
I think they just perpetually have it until we abolish IP and let Zack Snyder do his own thing. Yeah, we're not gonna.
Well, and
We're
with
gonna see this.
Joker crossing $1 billion, I mean, it's now the most successful comic book movie,
R-rated movie.
right?
R-rated movie.
Not
Yeah.
comic book rated movie. No, Endgame had like 2 billion or whatever.
Okay, but I mean, it was a massive overshot of the expectation.
Yeah, for an R-rated movie, I think it's the number one of all time.
And also without China.
All
Oh,
right.
really? Joker wasn't released in China?
Yeah. Nope.
Wow.
Too controversial, too many incels or something.
Too hot to hold.
Oh, speaking of
Yeah.
China, I don't know if you guys saw this, but in the past week, I saw that there was footage of a guy being interrogated by the police for making social media comments, making fun of parking ticket officers or something like that, traffic cops. He was strapped
Serious?
England? Or is that China?
in China, and he was strapped in this Iron Maiden style chair, like it's iron bars, like holding him down in the seated position. His arms are trapped under this thing, and they're asking him, "Did you post this? What did you mean by this? Who else is in this group?" It's like really scary shit. It's like just for even making a light, making light of
Sure.
official, police.
The Great Party, Daniel.
Yeah. I mean, that's
Kind of that.
it seems like where we're headed. I mean, we talked about this when we had Miguel on for Social Network, the Sesame credit system that they have over there. We see the things happening here are just lagging a few years behind what's happening there. Like, if you want to look into the future, my friends, look and see what's happening in social media in the UK and China now, because that's what's coming here. And by here, I mean also Australia, Shaheen. It's probably worse.
I think I think Australia's a little bit worse, but we're in the bullseye.
I don't personally think it's going to get as bad as China, unless you get a whole like different government system and you get a proper communist or some sort of dictatorship.
Have you seen
yeah,
all the Democratic candidates?
Yeah, I mean like general population.
It's supposedly not a communist regime, and it's almost as bad as China. I mean, I don't know if they're using the Iron Maiden to torture the wrong thinkers, but they've had thousands of people arrested for social media posts.
Wait, UK?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for having knives, even butter knives.
Oh yeah.
You got a permit for that knife.
Got a license for that license?
All right. We're getting off track, and I know, Shaheen, you don't have a whole lot of time left. So why don't we get into final summary and review, and then we can maybe squeeze in a little bit of Kathleen Turner Overdrive after that before you got to go. And that is available for our Patreon supporters. You can hit us up at lastnighter.com/Patreon, everyone, to get access to our pre-show, post-show content, and even the live stream action that we might actually make available for everyone, possibly after the new year with this new system we've got in place, which if you want a piece of this, go to lastnighter.com/theyard. And you can try out this StreamYard system. Pretty dope stuff. Anyway, let's get into final summary and review, unless anyone has any final things they want to bring up related to Killing Joke or Joker, the Joaquin version. All right. And sold. I'll go to Robert first for final summary and review time. 1 through 10, decimal point deep, and go.
I thought this film was enjoyable. I like all my animated series stuff. I generally enjoy DC comic animated pieces. But as a movie, as a coherent whole, it's a mess. It's a narrative mess. I don't know who the main character is. It seems to be Barbara, but maybe it's Batman, but maybe it's the Joker. At different times, it's a different main character.
Could be Gordon.
Maybe. Maybe it's I don't know. And then the way it's two stories crammed together, which would have been okay if they really would have leaned into, hey, this is two separate stories, kind of like the way Sin City did it. So there's like a title card, and then it moves on to the next story. Like, this is two stories in the same universe that are kind of related. I would have been more on board with that, but instead it was just kind of two totally different stories that don't reference each other, that are back to back, and they're in the same movie. And it just felt really, really awkward that way, because the first half is about this thing, and then the second half is about this other thing. And I understand we're trying to get more into knowing these characters, but it succeeds in that respect. I think it does. I think when Barbara is killed by the Joker, it would make more sense if she was shot by Paris Franz, but because I just don't know. It's just a big fat mess for me. I don't know why they did it this way. I think it fails. I think if you just want to do the Killing Joke, you just do the Killing Joke, and maybe you leave it as a half-hour show. I don't know, but for me, this is like a 6.5. This is not very good. It's like average, or maybe even bad. Maybe I should go lower and go like a 6 or a 5.5. As much as I love Hamill's performance as the Joker and Conroy as Batman, the story is just a mess for me. So I can't really recommend it. There are better movies out there that do the same type of thing. I thought The Dark Knight is a similar story of the Joker trying to turn someone crazy to prove a point, and it's done way, way better. So go watch The Dark Knight again, and you can skip this. That's what I would say. It's a 5.5.
All right, you've been working, you're whittling it down, 6.5 to a 6 to a 5.5. Shaheen, can you take us any lower?
I reckon that sounds about right, like a 6.5. As a movie, yeah, it would be about a 6.5, because it's just incoherent. But if it was two different, like if you think of it as two different comics, or like comic book come to life animations, or just like episodes of different, each of them is a different episode of a show, I think then you can rate it higher if they were like individual episodes and not as a movie. And like the whole thing with Barbara and why it's about Barbara in the first episode, I mean, that's to set up like how Batman feels about her and what it's like to lose her and have her be shot and be paralyzed, which kind of is the main focus, because she becomes Oracle and becomes, a wheelchair. Becomes stuck on a wheelchair after this in the comic. So this is a quite vital point in her story. I think that's one of the reasons why it's so popular as well. But yeah, I reckon the comic book's better. So as a movie, I'll give it a 6.5. But as individual episodes, I'll give episode 1 like a 7, and episode 2, which would be the whole Killing Joke come to life, probably a 9, if they were episodes.
Wow, that's some bold praise.
Well, seeing it, considering if it's being seen and as an animated universe kind of episode, not as a movie. Too anticlimactic to be a movie, in my opinion.
And kind of like linking up other canon, because you mentioned Oracle, so you got origin of her, you got origin or one variation of origin on Joker. You've got some continuity, some connections between this and other pieces. So in that realm, it kind of works well for you, but as standalone, not so great.
Yeah. And I guess some of the pacing could have been done a bit better.
Yeah. So I'll launch into mine a little bit. I was wholly disappointed in this because I saw so much potential. And I am not like super well versed in the DC extended universe. I've seen Batman movies. I've seen some animated Batman. I've read some Batman comics, but not to the level of my cohorts here. But even with that limited experience, I just saw so many missed opportunities. It's like you're bringing on the field goal unit for a chip in, and they go wide right. And I'm like, laces out, Lou, or whoever directed this. You had so many possibilities here that you could have investigated and dove into. I mean, in looking at the history of this, they said, well, we added on this Barbara Gordon bit, the Batgirl bit, because we didn't feel like there was enough story in the Killing Joke. But then they shortchanged the Killing Joke. They didn't really give us into the depths of the potential risks of psychosis for Gordon. We never get into, I mean, you had this opportunity to get in, like, you're in animation, right? So you can do kind of whatever you want. Let's get into Gordon's head. Let's see what's going on in there. Let's see him actually tormented by this and like at risk of actually going crazy. Let's make that be a significant component of the film instead of just Batman shows up, defeats everyone. Joker's like, hey, I made your buddy crazy. Oh, didn't work. Anticlimactic. And then you get this joke at the end, which, I mean, I kind of get. That was kind of funny, but, because they're like these arch nemeses who've been fighting each other for years. And in a way, they're talking about how they almost need each other. If I recall, they're like yin and yanging. And then they just end up laughing and then roll credits. But I just feel like there was so much more that could have happened in this. And a lot of the Barbara Gordon stuff, though, I appreciated having more of a reason to feel like, get to know her and feel like how impacted Gordon would have been by her being paralyzed and raped by Joker to drive him crazy. I don't think that they needed to go as far as they did, especially with the whole Batman sex stuff and the yoga instructor stuff and the gay librarian guy. Just felt unnecessary and kind of ham-fisted in. So again, just missed opportunities. So I'm going to go with a 4 on this. I'm a hater on this, though I do have praise for Conroy. I do have praise for Hamill. I think of Hamill's voice when I think of the Joker as far as voice acting goes. And I don't know if that's just because of, growing up watching the animated series and he was the consummate Joker until Ledger came out. But so that's where I'm at. I'm at a 4 on this. Does anyone have any rebuke to me? Is that too harsh? Shaheen, what do you think?
Well, if you look at it as like an episode of a show, then yeah, you can be like, yeah, okay, I can see it. It's kind of like enjoyable if you see it that way. But I guess if you go in expecting what you did, then yeah, 4's fair enough. Depends how you're rating it. The criteria for marking. Keep in mind, as a movie, I'd give it like a 6. So, but as an episode, I'd give it like probably an 8, I'd say.
I do find that when I have high expectations, they're usually not met. And this goes not only for movies or things that people recommend, like, oh, you got to see this show, this TV series or whatever. It's so good. And then I watch it, I'm like, it was all right. Or, you always, if you've never been to New York City, it's in, 80% of movies, apparently. And everything looks so big and you get kind of familiar with it from watching it, seeing it so often in movies and TV shows. Then you go there and it's like, I don't know. I mean, it's cool and all, but it's a little bit disappointing. Or like Disneyland or something like that. You're like, I thought it would be bigger. Maybe I'm just
doesn't match the hype.
Yeah, maybe I'm just a natural pessimist, I guess. But anyway, that's my take. Robert, anything before we mention what we're going to be doing next week?
No, I was just disappointed by this movie. I think you're right to be disappointed by it. I think you're right. I mean, in the age of all the mass content we have at our fingertips and the limited amount of time that we have to view it, I think that you got to be honest when something doesn't meet your expectations so that maybe other people can go, oh, there's other better stuff out there I can spend my time on. So thank you, sir.
All right, and in honor of having our guest from Down Under, I've done a reversal with you, Robert. You're usually the hater of whatever we've watched. At least that's what I hear from our audience. They're like, "Yeah, why does Robert even do this show? He just hates movies."
I just want him to be better.
Well, next week, I've got a movie that no one can hate. And we're going to have Rocky Ferrenburg back. He was on with us for The Mule and Smallfoot, I want to say, about a year ago.
I can hate it.
But he's coming back, not for Claus.
Be in color, movie. What are you doing? You're shit. Be in color.
Well, here's the movie we're doing. This one will be Gremlins.
What?
We're doing Gremlins. It's a bit of a change up for you, Robert. I know you're expecting other films. So with Rocky, we're doing Gremlins. It's one of his favorite films. And in fact, he made a recent post saying that a lot of people say Die Hard is the greatest Christmas movie ever. But he's going to say, no, Gremlins is even better. Now, we did Die Hard a couple of years ago. And I think, Shaheen, you were on
With me.
It was a Christmas movie. And I'll post that on our show notes because that was a lot of fun. Die Hard's a great movie. But
That was great.
Rocky makes the claim that Gremlins is even better and more Christmassy. So that's what we're going to be doing next week when you guys come back with us. That will be episode 102 of the show.
You're throwing me curveballs, Daniel. I thought we were doing something else. Okay.
Well, the other something else that you're thinking of is probably going to be a week after that.
Okay, that's more of a Christmas movie.
Yeah, it's the Christmas season.
The Christmas movie.
And because Thanksgiving is so late this year, it was like the last possible day it can be. The holiday season, the shopping season, and the amount of shows we can get in before Christmas is very, very limited. Like there's just 2 more before Christmas after this. That's it. That's all we got. So Gremlins will be one of them. And then we're going to be going black and white style with Mike C. from Canada, another Commonwealth, Shaheen, another one of you guys, for It's a Wonderful Life. That's going to be our Christmas movie.
Classic. The classic.
So that's what we got coming up, guys, in the next few weeks for you. Gremlins, and then It's a Wonderful Life. And so we're going to wind this one down. You can find this on lastnighters.com/101. Shaheen, you've been a wonderful guest. Thank you again. And I hope you can stick around for just
Thanks
a few
for listening
minutes.
to my ramblings.
Oh, we love your ramblings. That's why what we have you here for. And then you can also find this on the Launchpad Media, where they're always launching new ideas, new directions. Check it out at thelaunchpadmedia.com. And we're going to get into some Kathleen Turner Overdrive right after this. And we'll say goodnight from last night, everyone. All right, we're going to continue the Actual Anarchy podcast for just another minute or two. We did the Joker listing, Shaheen. Now I want to hear your Batman listing. Who were the best, worst to best in portraying Batman?
Okay, hold on. Let me see the options. There's Kevin Conroy, Michael Keaton. Okay, the worst is probably George Clooney, without surprise. Then Val Kilmer. Then I'd put Adam West. Although Adam West I do consider good. I mean, Clooney and Kilmer are like a 2 and a 4, and Adam West is like the 7 and above. There's actually 2 other Batman actors in the old 1943 and 1949 black and white TV series. I haven't watched them. I don't know their names yet, but we can just skip those for now. I'd say it goes then it'll be Michael Keaton. Then it would be Christian Bale, then Kevin Conroy, and then Ben Affleck. Affleck's my favorite one.
Wow. All right. Well, I'm going to disagree at your back end of this scale. I agree with all the front end stuff, but I'm going to put Bale at the top. He was my favorite Batman, especially in Batman Begins. Affleck, I just don't buy him as Batman. I'm sorry. I just don't.
Really?
Well, so
Why?
it's one of those things with just Ben Affleck as an actor. I just don't like him as an actor. He always seems so forced or wooden to me. And
Yeah, rewatch Justice League and tell me if Ben Affleck wants to be in that movie.
Keep in mind that
Oh,
movie
God,
is like
like,
80% reshoots.
He's like, I'd rather be anywhere else.
well, I'm talking even like in Good Will Hunting or anything else he's famous for. I mean, I haven't seen like his, and
The
I know
town.
these aren't recent, but
Argo.
like 4 or 5 years ago, he was in Argo and something else, The Accountant. He won awards for those. I haven't seen him, but even in Mallrats, I was like, I just, he's the same in every movie, and it doesn't jive with me. And so I saw him as not a really great Batman. Val Kilmer, also not a great Batman, though I love him. I love him in as Mad Mardigan. I love him in Heat. I love him in Tombstone, in The Doors. Val Kilmer does great stuff, and I actually saw something recently, The Short Life or something like that. It's like a
Life is Short
mockumentary with gosh, what's his name? He played the Ewok.
Wicket.
He played Willow. Anyway, he's even funny in that, where he's like making fun of himself conning what is his name? Oh, I just had it.
Yeah.
Anyway, he makes fun of like conning him into thinking they're going to make Willow 2 just so he can get like Willow to raise like 10 or 20 grand just to buy Val Kilmer like a weekend or two of just blowing money on fancy dinners in a fancy hotel. It's funny and hilarious. So anyway, that's my only quibble with your ranking. Robert, any ranking quibbles from your side that would be different from mine or Shaheen's?
Oh yeah, for me, Conroy's number one. I mean, I know it's like kind of cheating to not take a live action actor as your number one, because obviously Conroy, he can hide behind a microphone, never have to actually emote or do any of the physical stuff. But I thought Bale was a perfectly good Bruce Wayne, but I didn't like his Batman voice. Affleck never seemed like he wanted to be there. He just didn't seem to care or give a shit. Like he just didn't care. I want to say that my favorite Batman's probably Keaton, and that's just because Keaton, even though he's like a little guy, he doesn't have the physicality of Batman, but he brought something to the role beyond what was written on the page, where Affleck never does that for me. It's like he doesn't spend time in rehearsal. He doesn't spend time like really bringing anything to the character that hasn't already been seen before, that isn't just saying the lines and standing on your mark. And then of course, yeah, I can't agree with you more on the other stuff. Like I thought maybe Adam West would be a little bit higher just because of the campy nature. I mean, he sold it. I mean, that is just still a fun show to watch. It really is. It really stands the test of time. Just how goofy and just how groundbreaking it was at the time. I mean, that was all revolutionary compared to what else was on at the time. But yeah, I'm going to cheat and say Conroy is my number one, followed probably by Bale, then West. Or no, sorry, Keaton, then Bale, then West.
All right.
And then, yeah, Kilmer and, freaking
the other guy.
Fucking
star guy Clooney was easily the worst. I mean, he cared even less than Affleck. I mean, that was just ridiculous performance, if you'd even call it that.
I think Affleck definitely cares more in BVS than Justice League. I don't think really anyone cares all that much in Justice League, especially because the movie that we got is mainly reshoots. I think, like, keep in mind the character that he's playing in BVS is the older, angrier Batman. It's the first time we see Batman in his like late 40s, early 50s, being like kind of tired, old, angry. I just kind of really dig, the Dark Knight Returns. I think Affleck perfectly made like a combination of like comic book Batman and Dark Knight Returns Batman.
I can see some of that. I can definitely see some of that. He is better in Batman versus Superman. It's true. But to Daniel's point, I just don't really buy him in almost any role. Maybe I'm anti-Affleck just for the sake of being anti-Affleck, but he's never impressed me as an actor.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
I mean, I think he does decent writing. He and Matt Damon wrote Good Will Hunting and won an award for that. And I felt
Allegedly.
like that had good dialogue in it. Sort of like the Aaron Sorkin movie we talked about, Social Network. You can kind of get into the witty dialogue that is unrealistic, like that would never happen in real life, but it looks good when you present it in film. It looks smart and winning and snappy. And I think that came from, just kind of the era, and then Kevin Smith films and you saw it in Gilmore Girls and things like that, and West Wing and all that. Anyway, we're getting off topic here. We should wind this one down and finally get into this Kathleen Turner Overdrive, where I know, Shaheen, you got to take off and actually go do something productive, provide value for others in exchange, mutually beneficial exchange and all that.
Yep.
But thank you so much for joining us for this episode, everyone. And Shaheen, thank you. This is episode 158
Glad to be on.
Anarchy.com/158. And I keep cutting you off, Shaheen, so I'll give you however long you want to say something, and then we'll say goodnight.
No, not too long at all. Just thanks for having me on. I'm always happy to be on.
All right, thanks again, and we'll be sure to have you on before you start classes again in the spring. And thank you for your take.
Do you have an idea?
Yeah.
We can do the 1989 Keaton Batmans. See, he made two movies, so Batman 89 and Batman Returns in 92. And they're some of my favorite Batman movies, so I'll definitely be happy to have a crack at those.
All right, I'll put it on the docket.
Yeah, the Burton Batmans. They're a totally different take. They're dark and gritty, but yeah, they have their high points for sure.
All right, well, we'll be back in the spring with those, and we'll be back next week for some Christmas-themed Gremlins, and then the week after that, It's a Wonderful Life. And you're a wonderful audience. Thank you guys very much. We appreciate you, and we wish you the best of holidays, Merry Christmas, and all that stuff. And we'll see you guys next week. Good night, everyone. Maximum freedom.
The Chipmunks. CHIPMUNK. We're the Chipmunks. Guaranteed to brighten your day. Do 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 do.